Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Marketing Show. My name is Ty Daniel Smith, and with me is Kylie Lowe and TJ Shed. And today we are discussing how frequently you should post on Twitter. This is something that people basically disagree on all the time. There's not necessarily a clear one answer that fits everyone, but we're going to get into sort of what works for most people and what should work for you. So let's just dive right into it. How frequently is too often, do you think?
I don't think there is a too often.
You don't think it's too often?
I mean, I'm sure it'll depend somewhat on the industry you're in and the type of content. But for things, I mean, that's the whole point of Twitter is it's moving fast. And I think that's their thing is it's what's now, right? Isn't that what they're saying? Okay, so.
Maybe it was at one point. I don't know what the slogan is now.
But I mean, so if it's what's now, it's literally anything that's going on at any point in the day. So a lot of the big accounts tweet constantly. I'd say, I mean, yeah, I don't think there is a too much. It's just as much as you can get out there that you think is relevant and interesting. I mean, you can always.
There's not a too much as long as there's a certain level of quality to the content.
Yeah, but you can always delete stuff.
Yeah, I know.
That's true. But I would unfollow an account that was posting.
True. I mean, it's just going to depend. Like I said, it depends on the person and it depends on, what you're going for and what it is, the type of content. So like if it's news, for example.
Okay.
And you would expect a news outlet to be constantly tweeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you wouldn't necessarily unfollow one of those if they're tweeting news that you're interested in.
Yeah,
that's why you followed them.
Let's gear it specifically to for this question alone. Is there too frequently for content creators or brands that are just starting out and trying to grow a following on Twitter?
Is there too often? No.
Is there too often?
No. As much as you can possibly do it is,
Yeah, how much free time do you have?
Right. I mean, it's a matter of you don't have enough time to do it. Like, because realistically, yeah, it'd be great if you could have a dedicated person that sits there and is tweeting all day long. Not only tweeting your own tweets, but interacting, replying to other tweets, commenting on other threads. Like, that's what I would say. That's what I always tell people. If you're starting on Twitter, the best way to start is to comment on other top threads. So follow other industry leaders, comment funny, interesting things on what they say, and then people will reply.
That's Gary Vee's thing, right?
That's how he talks about for Instagram, and it does work well for Instagram as well. And he probably would say the same thing for Twitter, and it just works extremely well, especially if you have like under 50 followers.
Yeah,
and you tweet something, it's almost like shouting into like the abyss, basically. It doesn't seem like anybody hears it or nobody responds.
Well, how many categories is there on your timeline? There's like trending happening now in case you missed it, things that you might like, and then like current tweets, so there's it's always moving.
What about, so we said basically no maximum for most accounts. What about a minimum? What's the minimum amount you should be posting
if you're trying to grow?
If you're a brand, let's say.
If you're a brand, again, and then you're trying to grow your account, I assume, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a minimum you probably want to do at least 10 if you can, 5 to 10.
Is that just posts or is that including comments?
No, that's just posts, I think. I mean, comments I think you should do like in replies. That should still always be no less than like 20 to 50 a day.
Yeah, engagement's definitely a good way because you're creating more than just a message out there. You're creating a connection.
Right. But yeah, I mean, like if you look at a Lolly, for example, they do a really good job on Twitter and they're constantly tweeting. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be specific to your product always. Like being in touch with culture, especially on crypto Twitter and the things that other people are talking about and tweeting about what other people are tweeting about and staying relevant is more important, I think, than even tweeting about specifically yourself and your product all the time.
I think that a small percent, less than 20%, should be some kind of promotional message. I think the rest should be about what's going on, about something engaging,
something relevant,
something that provides value.
Exactly,
that's the key to all marketing, is providing some kind of value and then peppering it in with how it relates to your product or what kind of pain point you're addressing.
Exactly, and that's something like that's a perfect way to describe it because Lolly does that really well. And
their meme game is strong.
Yeah,
their meme game is very strong.
No, and they're all of it. Whoever does their stuff, and I think it's a couple different people. You guys do a really good job. So, I was talking. There was another one. I was talking about earlier. Kind, the brand does. They do a really good job on TikTok. Actually, as far as using, they're one of the best I've found is incorporating that for a brand.
Mm-hmm.
I think as far as like engagement wise, I always think Wendy's on Twitter because they love to troll their competition and they get memed from it,
Right.
and then it's
the
then
fast
it's like
food
a
brands,
joke.
the fast food brands, all of them, Burger King and Wendy's, they'll have their little like meme battles and wars and go back and forth. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch big brands. It's almost a lot of brands use it for like customer service, customer support.
Yeah.
But they, it tends to, they let people have a little bit of personality with it, which is nice. It's one of the few places you see personality from like Fortune 500 type companies.
Yeah. So I pulled up it's an aggregate study. So it's an aggregate of a bunch of different studies, and it was aggregated by CoSchedule, which is a social media planning software company. So they pulled the recommendations from, it's like 10 or something here, of different marketing companies about what they recommend. So the first one is QuickSprout, which is an SEO company. It's actually a blog, but they do a lot of social media stuff as well. They recommend 15 times per day as the sweet spot.
Sounds about right. That's good.
Yeah, they said minimum 1, maximum 51. I don't know where I didn't look far
but
enough.
15 is the sweet spot.
But 15 is, yeah. I don't know. Dow Social, another social media company, says they didn't put a maximum, but they said the minimum is 6 times per day on Twitter.
Interesting.
Constant Contact. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
I have a bunch of them. So Constant Contact, again, a minimum of 5 per day tweets. Buffer, actually, this is an outlier. It says maximum 3 per day. I disagree with that.
Yeah, that's probably just dated. Yeah. That's probably just dated information.
It was from 2018. I don't. Huh. I'm not sure what's going on there. But HubSpot says a minimum of 5 times per day, and then Adobe says their research study was only for massive brands, like truly like international brands. They say 3 times per day is the sweet spot. I'm not sure why they think that. I'm curious why that might be.
Well, it's different. Yeah, it's different when it's a big international brand too, because you have to be a lot more. You have to hit.
Yeah,
and your messaging has to be a
too.
lot. Yeah, you have to be much more careful with everything you put out there.
Yeah.
If you're a small account and you say something controversial, it's only going to help you probably.
Right.
Assuming it's not, ridiculously controversial or something like that.
The point I was going to make about the 10 to 15 as being the sweet spot is I've heard a couple of the people that we've worked with and talked to in the space, that's kind of the sweet spot of they're looking for at least 10 tweets that get really high engagement.
Yes.
So they're going to tweet more than that. They maybe tweet 15 to 20 times a day to find those 10 that really go off. And then it doesn't really matter what you do with those other ones. So that's kind of the upside to going more than, to more quantity is you're looking for those 10 that really hit every single day.
And you learn as you go.
Exactly.
It is somewhat of social media in general is somewhat of a volume game.
Totally. It's definitely a volume balanced with quality.
Yeah. So on that note, obviously, I mean, posting 15 times per day is not something that like just the average entrepreneur is capable of doing for a small business or a small company. How do you think people should manage posting that volume every day?
See, I would disagree with that mentality. I think the average entrepreneur is capable of it.
Oh, capable, but I don't think it's the best use of resources. Unless marketing is, I mean, for us, it makes sense because we're a marketing company. People have to see that we're capable of marketing.
Where I was going is I think anybody is capable of tweeting 15 times a day. It's just a matter of building habits is basically what it is.
I'm coming up with something good to say.
Well, but not necessarily. The more you do it, if you just start trying to do it 10 times a day, then you start to just naturally have stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no. Have you been on crypto Twitter?
But I mean, you can have multiple. Like, for example, our Coinbound account, it's not just me. It's all of them.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of ways to get 15 tweets out there. I guess I was just trying to say the way to do it is just start building habit. If you're not doing it at all and 15 a day seems daunting, start with 5 and then all of a sudden 5 a day will seem really easy and then 10 a day seems easy.
What are you raising your hand for?
Because that sounds hard.
No.
Oh, no. What?
I was going to say something after that.
Go ahead.
If you need help planning out your social posts, there are products that you can get that will help making your planning of social media posts
what are some
easier.
Of those?
Social Pilot, like we talked about.
In a previous episode.
Yes. What is it? Hootsuite, Buffer,
TweetDeck,
HubSpot.
TweetDeck, HubSpot. So,
or even another just basic trick that a lot of people use if you're trying to get a lot of stuff out is drafts. You can save stuff to drafts. So if you're just in a creative mood, you can write 5 or 10 tweets, save them all to draft, and just push them out whenever you feel like.
That's what I used to do before when CoinBound was like a one-person shop, I would once a month sit down when I was feeling creative and just schedule a ton of evergreen content that like didn't have anything to do with current news or current price, just something that was relevant to crypto. And then throughout the month, I would just post it.
Yeah.
But with things like Social Pilot and Hootsuite and HubSpot, you can do that same thing, but it eliminates the need to manually then post it because you can schedule it at certain intervals. So you can figure out when in the day and what days of the week you're getting the most engagement and then have it go out at that exact time.
Yeah.
So that's a huge time saver. And then again, that turns something that's basically a 24/7 job to something that's a 1 day per month job.
Absolutely. And like you said, doing the balance of that is, I think, the best way to go. So you schedule a bunch of those that are generic. Those are just going to fire automatically. And then you pepper in your own throughout the day of like relevant stuff. And
evergreen content alone can only go so far.
Right. And it has to be both, because I mean, there's nobody that's doing that many tweets a day that doesn't have some pre-scheduled. Like if you look at like every single week, Pomp tweets that same, what was the best article you read this week? Now it's great, it's engaging, it's a fun thread to read down, and I guarantee he's got that same thing.
I believe he's using Hootsuite.
Yeah,
you can see if someone's using software, you can.
Yeah, it usually says.
Yeah, it always says. You just click right into the tweet and it'll say published via Android for web or published via HubSpot. So definitely look at some of the accounts that you see doing it right and see what software they're using.
Well, and see what type of content they're making, because that's a perfect example of a very systemizable but relevant type of content that provides value to the audience and people that are engaging on it. Because it is, you click into that thread and you see a bunch of different articles.
That doesn't work for everyone, though.
No, it doesn't work. But I'm just saying you can use that as a guide and say, okay, what is something I could post regularly that's engaging, that provides value? I've seen a lot of people on Instagram. D-Rock is one of these videographer guy. He does a lot of networking things, and he'll say like, all right, I'm doing this post. Anybody who does something creative in the space, say who you are, what you're looking for, and then just boom, in the comments, all this networking starts breaking out. Like and he just does those every so often. He can do that whenever he wants. It's, guarantee that's a scheduled thing, but it provides a lot of value to the audience, so it's just a matter of finding a good way to strike that balance.
Yeah. So let's just summarize it. In general, crypto, Twitter is huge, and you should definitely be leveraging Twitter as basically a free way of getting exposure for your brand and growing your brand. But to do it right, you should be posting. It's all over the place. So we just discussed. Let's call it 10 times minimum per day.
Yeah. Plus engaging commenting.
Yeah. And if you need help, there's tools out there, and you can also work with agencies. I mean, we do that. We work with a lot of crypto brands to help them sort of put their Twitter account and other accounts on autopilot. So they can pepper in their own kind of updates and project updates. Meanwhile, we are every day populating their account.
Keep a constant flow of content.
Yeah, and it's relatively cost effective considering posting a tweet is free.
Right.
If you have any questions about that, about how to run Twitter successfully in the crypto space, join us on Slack at coinbound.io/join Slack. And follow us on Twitter too. We post this podcast, we post other tips and stuff like that as well. Yeah, that is at coinbound_io. My Twitter handle is Ty Daniel Smith. TJ's is Young Dumb Crypto, and Kylie is Crypto Kylie. If you found, do you have something to say?
I was just saying, if you got to this podcast via a Twitter link, say something about it in the comments.
Yeah. And you'll see that Twitter is actually working.
There you go.
And remember to, if you like the podcast, rate, review, and recommend us, especially on Apple. We're trying to grow our review base there because that's super helpful for us growing organically. And that is all for today. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.